Hello everyone and welcome to a little, it's not a rant video, but it's more of a what the hell is going on video, because at my club currently at West Ham United, things are just all over the place. Sometimes it beggars belief, the sort of crap that comes out of my club. And I know that this channel, the Kickabout Podcast, as a thing, is not a West Ham fan channel. I understand that. But when my club is doing such ridiculous things, sometimes I feel that it needs talking about, and frankly, I need to vent about it at times. But believe me that going forward, I do definitely want to be doing videos on everything else in the Premier League, other clubs as well. But whilst I make plans and work out how that's going to look and feel, I want to make this video because I want to make it very, very clear what is going on, what is the thinking, what is the plan, and also just refer and reference some of the narrative that's surrounding West Ham at the moment, in particular the West Ham fans, their desires, their dreams, their hopes and aspirations, and in some cases why we are still being vilified by other fans, people in the media, and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be quite an encompassing video here. I've not got any kind of structure for this video in front of me. This is kind of just going to be a projection of my feelings and emotions about this. So yeah, hopefully this will be interesting. Hopefully this will cover a lot of the topics that's going on at the moment, because my God, there is a lot. And yeah, we can kind of get to the bottom of what on earth is going on right now at West Ham Football Club. So I guess the first place to start really is how we've got to this point where we are right now. Now, there are still sections of the media and sections of the fans that are still harping back to the David Moyes era. I've covered that extensively on the podcast on many occasions. It's been covered around the place. If you are still of the opinion that David Moyes, or getting rid of David Moyes, or letting his contract expire, we didn't fire him, we just let his contract expire, but I guess it's like it's a gentle firing, I guess you could say. If you are still of the opinion that he should be manager of West Ham Football Club and you thought that he was the right man to take us forward, I mean, I wholeheartedly disagree. You are, of course, entitled to your opinion, but if you think that just because he won us that trophy that he should be kind of absolved of all guilt for everything else that was going on towards the end of his tenure, you're blind, frankly. We were conceding goals as we are now, left, right and centre. If you're looking at Lopetegui and looking at West Ham as a soft touch defensively, then you have to make the same criticism of David Moyes, because it was evident in the last year or so of his tenure, or certainly the last 6 months of his tenure. And also I think that if you look at his tactics and look at his style, you can see that it had been found out, frankly. And whether or not it was a case that David Moyes was reluctant to change, couldn't change, or whether other teams had just found us out, whatever it may be, we were on the decline. And, if you take the European trophy out of the equation, the Conference League title out of the equation, he would have been sacked at the end of that season. It was happening. There was talk about it behind the scenes. It was all known. But because he won that Conference League title, he, probably rightly so, earned himself another shot. And I think that the West Ham board, to a degree, and although I don't necessarily, agree with it, it's kind of all done now, they gave him the entire season. And the first 6 months of that last season of David Moyes' tenure, so effectively last season, we were in a good spot. We'd won a good chunk of games in that first half of the season. We were up in the upper reaches of Europe again. Everything was kind of rosy. But when you dug under the surface and you dug deeper into those results, you will see that a lot of them were quite fortunate. And if you're relying on luck and other teams' wastefulness in front of goal, at some point you're going to come unstuck. So whilst the results were very good, whilst the results were very exciting to see us back up, knocking on the door of Europe again, it wasn't a recipe for sustainability. It wasn't a recipe for success that was going to carry on. We were effectively just riding our luck. And that very much ran out in the second half of the season. Under David Moyes in that second half of the season, from January to the end of the season in May, we only won 3 games out of however many it was, 19, 20 games. There aren't many managers in the league that would survive with that sort of record. And when you take into account that from a goals conceded point of view, we were I think the worst in the league outside of the 3 that got relegated. There was a disconnect between the fans, the tactics weren't working, we were too negative, etc, etc, etc. Now, is playing a low block and on the counter a necessarily bad way of playing football? No, not necessarily. David Moyes had effectively played that way from the moment that he came in. The difference is that we were far better on the ball when we had it, when we did get it, and we played on the counter-attack extremely effectively, which made it quite exciting to watch. When you go back to sort of COVID times, when he first came in, Jesse Lingard played like prime Maradona for 6 months. Jarrod Bowen coming in was firing. We had Souček coming in, he was firing. Everything was going well. But obviously, like a lot of managers do, even ones that play a better brand of football, eventually it went stale, and David Moyes could not inject enough energy into the team. He could not inject enough passion into the team to change things tactically, all that kind of stuff. And it had just run its course. And he will go down as a big manager for West Ham. He'll go down as a highly successful one. He'll go down as probably a legend in years, once a few more years kind of slide through under the bridge. I think he will be remembered very fondly. And I certainly remember him fondly for a lot of things. He did some amazing things. He gave us some amazing memories in Europe, in the Europa League, in the Conference League, that night in Prague, of course. I'm 35 years old. Outside of a playoff final, that's the first trophy I've seen West Ham win. So he has to be viewed very fondly for that reason alone. It could be another 35 years until I see West Ham win another one. I don't know. We are not a club that, is a guarantee of success at all. We are reliant on competition, domestic competitions and smaller European competitions to give us a chance of something. So I do remember most fondly for that, but it doesn't mean that I can't then also have a similar view with him to say that his time had run out. So that's that. We then move forward into the summer. We're interviewing left, right and centre. Ruben Amorim is rumoured. I'm not 100% sure exactly how close that deal ever was. Some people say it was close and that it was just West Ham that didn't want to pay the release clause. Some people say it was Amorim just sounding us out and never really had any interest himself. Who knows what the story really was there. But either way, we ended up with a manager that, frankly, no West Ham fans wanted. If we were going to get rid of David Moyes, we wanted a real change. And what we've effectively ended up with was David Moyes 2.0. So it's frustrating because a lot of people think that be careful what you wish for, etc. like that. Well, nobody wished for this. It's worth noting as well, when Lopetegui in the summer was close to joining AC Milan, the AC Milan fans held effectively a revolt. They created a petition. They staged almost protest level backlash against the board and AC Milan, and they had to change their mind. They were ready to appoint Lopetegui, and because of the fans' reaction, they had to pull the brakes on the deal. So that gives you an idea. If AC Milan fans were so critical against him, then West Ham fans, we've now sort of come round to the same thinking. I think there was an element of allowing him a little bit of leeway. There was a little bit of like, okay, well, you're in here now. Let's see how this kind of pans out. So he was giving a little bit of leeway, but I think we were all a little bit nervous. We'd seen him at Wolves. He's outside of Sevilla. He's never really held down a job for any length of time. But he had success at Sevilla. So maybe we thought, okay, well, it didn't work out at Real Madrid, but that is a very big job. It went very sour at the Spain national level because of the Real Madrid link. So he was fired, I believe, because he had agreed to go and work for Real Madrid while still manager there just before a major tournament. So he got binned off. And obviously he came in to save Wolves from relegation, but the football itself wasn't brilliant. But there was an element of, well, he did what was needed to do. So he comes in, he has the entire summer. Of course, West Ham spent a lot of money on a lot of players. More on that later. And he comes in and he promises, a bit of a better brand of football, possession-based, etc., etc. So we're like, right, okay, well, let's give him a chance. Let's see how this pans out. Now, of course, here we are 20 games into the season, and it's not been great. Let's be brutally honest. We are still massively underperforming, in my opinion, mainly from a defensive point of view. I think what was worrying under David Moyes was that because of his pragmatism and the way he sets teams up in a low block, we were incredibly ineffective at doing that. So when your main tactic is to make sure that you are strong defensively so that you can give yourself a chance on the counter-attack and nick games by the odd goal here and there, which by and large was his tactic outside of a few games here or there where he let the leash off and the players went at it. If you're no good at doing that, it really calls into question, your tactics and whether or not you're able to get this team going again. With David Moyes, I don't think he could, and Lopetegui was seeing the same thing. But I think it's worse than that with Lopetegui, because I don't necessarily think that all of it is down to him per se. I think the way in which we set up tactically is naive at times, but it's really not good. So if you were to ask me, are there any differences? Have we seen any improvements under Lopetegui compared to under Moyes? I would say yes, but very, very marginal ones. I think we are better in possession. We do keep the ball better, but actually we're very lackluster going forward. We are falling dangerously into that bracket of sort of keeping the ball for keeping the ball's sake. We are not particularly dynamic when we go forward, outside of the odd game here or there where we have been dynamic going forward and created a lot of chances, but just been very wasteful. There's been a couple of games in the last 7 or 8 where we've seen that. I think Bournemouth, Man City, actually at the weekend, we were good going forward, but we're wasteful. And we also saw it in the away game where we lost 3-1 at Leicester. So yeah, there have been some improvements, but in transitions defensively, we are absolutely horrendous. Now, some of that is down to tactics. Some of that is that he pushes the fullbacks on too far, leaving the defenders exposed. But the other side of it is, from a player personnel point of view, we are woefully short in the midfield from an energy and legs point of view. We've got 3 midfielders in Alvarez, Soler, Rodriguez, who just don't have the legs, and Souček as well, who don't have the legs to cover enough ground quickly enough to provide defensive cover when we're being countered against. So effectively, every single time the ball is turned over and you transition from attack to defence, they're sort of running at us in waves, and we are almost powerless to help the defence prevent that. Now, defensively, we have been poor. I think Koufal, as much as I've loved him during his time at West Ham, I think he has passed it. He gets taken on and beaten too easy. Emerson at the moment is a shadow of the player that we saw in the last 2 years. Todibo and Kilman and Mavropanos at centre-back, We've fiddled around with the centre-back partnerships too much. I think Kilman as a player, I think he's good. He's not shown his true qualities yet. Same with Todibo. I think there is a player in there. He was highly sought after when we bought him. So I think there's a player there, but for whatever reason, that hasn't worked out yet. And Mavropanos, frankly, I don't think is good enough. He has the odd solid game or here or there, and he will do some really good things, but he is the most prone of any of our defenders to making errors that unfortunately will lead to chances and inevitably goals. So there are personnel problems in the team that need sorting out. So some of the blame from a defensive point of view should go towards the recruitment in the summer, because we got rid of players like James Ward-Prowse, who I know wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but he was passionate, he was energetic, he gave us legs in that midfield that we didn't otherwise have. So some of the blame goes to that, and also we've got a good crop of young players who are just not getting a look in at the moment. So there's all that. I don't think Lopetegui was ever the right choice for West Ham, and so it has proven. Excuse me as I hit the microphone. And so it has been proven that he has not been the man that West Ham fans wanted. And unfortunately, what that's allowed to happen, it's allowed the narrow-minded people out there who just think that we were wrong in the first place to get rid of David Moyes. It's just allowed them to throw more fuel on the fire. So let me be very, very clear with this. Lopetegui being the wrong appointment and not working out does not mean that getting rid of David Moyes was also the wrong decision. Getting rid of David Moyes was the correct decision, in my opinion. Getting Lopetegui in was the wrong decision. Those two things are independent of each other. It does not mean that if one is wrong, the other one is wrong. So where do we go from here? Well, unless you've been living under a rock in the football world, you will know that West Ham are apparently very, very close at appointing Graham Potter. Now, there have been rumours about the managerial position for probably about 2 months now, where Lopetegui has always seemingly been like 1 or 2 games away from the sack. And in true Ole Gunnar Solskjaer style, he finds a result and pulls one out of his arse and manages to save his job and fight another day. But it looks like that has now run out. There was talk of whether or not he was going to get the Aston Villa game on Friday night against in the FA Cup, whether he was going to get that opportunity. But with games against Fulham and Crystal Palace coming up before we get into a bit of a tougher run of games, I think we've got Villa and Chelsea and maybe might have Liverpool in there, I can't remember. They've obviously decided that now's the time to make the change. The problem is, and there's two problems here. Number one is the way in which this has been handled has been truly abhorrent. It really has shown West Ham in a really negative light. And I think actually, if you're looking from the outside in, you would rightly think, what on earth are West Ham doing? And I fully agree with you. I think if you think West Ham are handling this badly, this actually is a bit of a it paints a picture of the style of ownership under David Sullivan and Karen Brady. We've got loads of board members who are all pulling in different directions. You've got a director of football that is constantly having his hands tied, who apparently is not a saint himself, by the way, and is actively been trying to undermine Ruben Lopetegui because maybe it wasn't his appointment in the summer. I think we all know that Amorim was Steiden's preferred appointment. So you've got all these conflicts of interest going on, and now we're doing this managerial dance so publicly that it is so disrespectful to Lopetegui. You know, love him or hate him, Lopetegui has been professional. He's done what he needed to do. Yes, there's been some rumours of bits and pieces behind the scenes. I don't think we ever really truly know exactly what happened between him and Todibo, for example. There was rumours of a punch-up. I'd be very surprised if there was an actual punch-up I'd be very surprised if there was punches thrown, I guess is what I'm saying. I think the chances of there being a bit of an argument, highly likely, though West Ham have been poor, so emotions are probably running high. So, yeah, I don't think that happened. But, like, as I say, love him or hate him, this is not the way to do it. This is not the way to treat a manager and treat anybody, quite frankly, in these positions. We are doing this so publicly. Everything is being reported on. Sky Sports, all the other media outlets have been reporting for a couple of days. TalkSport even said a couple of days ago that he'd already been sacked. It turned out to be bullshit, as usual, from TalkSport, from Alex Crook, I think it was. Bloke needs to check his sources. And here we are on Wednesday lunchtime, and still we don't know what's going on. Lopetegui has been taking training all week, obviously trying to prepare for the Aston Villa game, but he won't be blind. He won't be stupid. He knows what's going on. He will hear and see the rumours. And it must be horrendous. Like, he's having to come in and face the players, knowing that, meanwhile, up in a building upstairs somewhere, Graham Potter is being interviewed and actively being sought after. It couldn't get any worse, honestly, if Lopetegui was taking training and turned round and saw David Sullivan giving Graham Potter a guided tour of the facilities. That's the only way it could get any fucking stupider at this point. It really is a very poor show from West Ham, and it's not the first time we've done something like this. We did this to a degree under David Moyes. There was all these rumours of interviews going on while he was still in charge. So it's yet again poor management, poor ownership and poor leadership from the West Ham owners. This should be done behind closed doors. If you really don't want Lopetegui, which obviously they don't, then just relieve him. Just say to him, look, I'm sorry, it's not working out. We're going to let you go, etc. And bring in a caretaker for a week or two, like other teams do. Just make a clean break. Bring Kevin Keane in. Bring Mark Noble in. Bring one of the other youth coaches in, whatever it needs to be for a game. The FA Cup game on Friday night is quite important for our season, to be honest, because we haven't really got anything else to get excited about. So a cup run could actually lift the spirits of everyone involved with the club. So do what you need to do. Fire him off. Don't allow him to sit in this no man's land of not knowing what's going on while still trying to do his job. And then bring in Potter. And you can do all of that bit then publicly about who you're talking to without having to deal with the backlash and negativity of doing it in such a shady way. It sums David Sullivan up. And apparently, just to finish on the point of David Sullivan, the sticking point with Potter has been, and has always been since we've been talking to him, that we only wanted to give him a six-month contract. I mean, if ever you wanted to have a piece of news to highlight exactly what David Sullivan is like and how much of a cheapskating coward that he is, there it is. You're taking a manager like Graham Potter, who everybody knows needs a chunk of time to get things right. The type of manager that he is, he needs a good chunk of time to kind of implement things and really, to see the fruits of his labour. Asking him to come in a situation like we are now, where there's a disconnect between the fans and the club. The fans are really just emotionless about everything to do with the club at the moment. The players are down on their luck. We've got an injury to our captain, which has really reinforced the downward feeling. Paquetá is all over the place with his betting scandal up in the air. Kudus seems like his head is already out the door. Everything is negative at the club at the moment. So asking any manager to come in and say in 6 months we want to see improvement. If we don't, you're going to go. What does that say to any potential manager coming in? Yeah, we're not actually that confident in your abilities. So what we're going to do, we're going to give you 6 months just so that if you are rubbish, and we're not 100% sure that you won't be, we can get rid of you without having to pay you off. That's effectively what it is. That is the crux of it. He is petrified of making the wrong appointment again and having to pay out to get rid of them. So that's astonishingly stupid from David Sullivan. No manager in their right mind is going to come in with that level of job security unless you are ultra confident in your own ability. It sounds like Everton potentially sounding out Potter if they do move Dyson maybe has given Graham Potter a few more cards to play in this negotiation battle. It sounds like it is no longer a 6-month contract. It is going to be longer, but it sounds like West Ham are doing their level best to put in stipulations into the contract which might allow a break clause at some point based on, I'm assuming, some kind of objective metric-based performance review, something along those lines. So that's that. The player recruitment in the summer obviously wasn't very good. We've seen only a couple of those players work out. I think Somerville been good, but Lopetegui for some reason was so reluctant to use him. Only really used him when he had no choice, and as soon as another option came back into the team from returning from injury or whatever, Somerville was always the one who was dropped. Füllkrug has had a very injury-hit time. I'm not casting judgment on him. Obviously, it hasn't worked out particularly well because of the injuries, but actually what we saw at Man City was a little glimpse, actually, I think, of a player that might be under the surface there. He looked sharper than we've seen him at any point this season. He was winning headers, holding the ball up, linking with midfielders, and took his goal really well. So there's hope yet, I think, for Füllkrug. Of the other signings, Gilherme is a Tim Steidten signing by all accounts, 25 million for effectively a youth player at the moment. Don't really understand why he hasn't been given a chance, so hopefully if Potter does come in, we'll see a bit of him. And really the only other signings that's worked out is Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka has been one of the few players that not only has played pretty well, but has shown a level of passion and desire that I wish I'd seen from the rest of the squad. So it's not been a great summer from a recruitment point of view. It's not all worked out, especially in that central midfield. In January, we desperately need a number 6 and probably a number 10, maybe and definitely a striker as well, actually. We don't know what's happening with Danny Ings. He just never seems to be involved. When he does, we see the odd glimpse of a good player there, but he never gets a run of games. Could Danny Ings be better in a Potter system? Maybe, don't know. But one way or the other, with Füllkrug's injury record, we need another striker, with Antonio being out probably for the season. So yes, we'll have to wait and see how all that pans out. But is Potter the right choice? That is the big question. Is he the answer to West Ham's prayers? Is he going to turn our fortunes around and start putting us up the league and putting us towards the European places? Now, let me be very clear here. As a West Ham fan, we are often criticised for thinking that we are bigger than we are and thinking that we have this God-given right to be a top-level team. That is absolutely not true. The West Ham way, that's the phrase, isn't it? That nobody knows what it is. Well, for me, it's very simple. You play with passion, you play in an entertaining manner, and you give everything for the shirt. That's kind of it. The West Ham way is not some kind of saying that must result in success on the pitch. It's nothing to do with that. Results have never really been a thing for West Ham. How could it be? We've only won one trophy in 40 odd years. How could we possibly be that deluded as a fan base to expect results like that just because we've had a couple of seasons in Europe recently and obviously the conference win? So yeah, expectations do naturally go up, but I don't necessarily think it is expectations. I think it's just hopes and aspirations. When you've had that taste of Europe for a couple of years and tasted success as well, of course you're going to clamour for it. Of course you're going to desire another run in Europe. Of course you are. Why wouldn't you? Any fan would be the same. Newcastle fans would be the same after the Champions League. They've had a taste of it. They're going to want more. Brighton fans this season, Aston Villa in the Champions League, they're going to want more of the same. So when you drop away from that, of course you're going to desire and clamour to get back up there. And West Ham have got a squad that has been designed for European competition, right? It's been designed to challenge for European places. Now, whether it's good enough to do so or not is another question, because that comes down to the quality of your recruitment, right? And the quality of the manager. So whether we're actually good enough to do it is another question. But that was the framework that was laid down. That was the motivation and the motivation behind all those purchases was to bring players in that could get us challenging for Europe again. And I think we've got a squad that is capable of doing so. I just think that we are woefully underperforming across the pitch. You know, a lot of those players were players that were playing in Europe for us. Now, we haven't replaced Declan Rice properly. Alvarez has done it okay on occasions, but he hasn't got the legs. He's okay on the ball, gets booked too often and gets suspended too much. So there's a lot to work on. There's still holes in the pitch from a tactical point of view and from a personnel point of view that need replacing. But overall, we're not a million miles away. So I think with a run of games under a manager that can get us going again, with the way the Premier League table is right now, get 3 or 4 wins together and all of a sudden you're knocking on the door of Europe again. It's quite astonishing the way the Premier League is at the moment, and actually it's working massively to our benefit, because in a normal season we'd be way cut adrift with the form that we've been in. And at the moment we are, if we continued under Lopetegui, I think we'd be way more concerned looking over our shoulder at the bottom guys than we would above us, because 1 or 2 of those teams below us are showing signs of life. Ipswich are showing signs of life. Wolves have got a new manager, so what are they going to do now? Crystal Palace have actually, don't think their results, their performances have been completely reflective of their results, so I think they should probably be a little bit higher than they are. Once Eze finally works out how to score goals again, I think they'll fly up the league a little bit. So I think really you're looking at Everton, Leicester, Southampton as your 3 most likely, as things stand, with Ipswich on the cusp as well as going down. But you know, if those teams pick up 1 or 2 wins and we don't, all of a sudden we are only a few points above that drop zone and we are clawed into something we do not want to be involved in. So yeah, we need to pick up a couple of results and get ourselves away from that. Look up rather than look down. So is Potter the right man? I think he is. I think he's definitely a better fit for what the club wants and needs than Lopetegui ever was. I don't think he's necessarily a massively exciting appointment, possibly due to the fact that it all went very badly for him at Chelsea. Most people, I think, are going to give him a free pass for that because of Chelsea being a bit of a shit show at that stage, where they had the uproar of the new ownership. They were buying players left, right and centre, Football Manager style. So I think people will give him a free pass for that, but I think people will be concerned at the way things panned out there. So we're obviously going to have to be a little cautious, but you know, if you look at his career leading up to Chelsea, he had no failures. Everything was a success. Every step in his career, from the sort of the leagues out in Sweden, I believe he was, to, you know, coming into England and obviously ending up with Brighton, everything was a success. He did tremendous work at Brighton. There's talk of getting rid of Tim Steidten and getting Dan Ashworth in. Well, obviously Dan Ashworth was with him at Brighton and they had a lot of success there. So, you know, there are positive things. I personally might have sided with maybe going for someone like Michael Carrick and really rolling the dice. You know, he's got an affinity with the fans, being an ex-player. He plays in a good start. He's gained a lot of experience at Middlesbrough and he's doing well there. Yes, it's a risk because he doesn't have Premier League experience other than a couple of games as caretaker at United. But there's other managers in the Premier League who didn't have any Premier League experience who have come in and done really well. Maresca, Iriola, you know, De Zerbi, you know, these sorts of managers who've come in the past and had experience elsewhere, maybe at a higher level than Carrick potentially, but still didn't have any Premier League experience and have come in and done really well. So that wasn't a guarantee for failure just because he didn't have Premier League experience. So I am keen to see what Potter does. At the very least, in the short term, I just want to see a bit of a buzz again with the West Ham fans. The London Stadium is not the best stadium in the world for football. We know this. But we've also seen some fantastic atmospheres up there, especially on some of those European nights. So it can be very good. It's just that there's been so little for West Ham fans to get excited about. So I do think Graham Potter, first of all, needs to win the trust of the fans. The fans will be ready for it. The fans will be clamouring a change. So I think he's going to get a good amount of leeway from the fans to get things going. And if West Ham fans can see, and this was the thing with Lopetegui, if we had seen a semblance of a plan, if we had seen a semblance of what's going on and seeing shoots of recovery, if you like, I think the West Ham fans would have been on board with Lopetegui. I don't think it was a case of we wanted him out because we didn't like him. We wanted him out because we couldn't see what was going on. There was no plan. Things were going backwards. So if Potter can get in and show the fans and the world that, you know, this is how we're going to play and we're going to work towards it, and we see buy-in from the players as well, which maybe we didn't always see from the players under Lopetegui, I think the West Ham fans will be on board, and I think that it will generate some excitement. I think the players will begin to feel the positivity from the manager, from the fans, because they're kind of excited, and all of a sudden things will be rosy again, and everyone will forget about how much of a twat David Sullivan is. So, yeah, there's a lot to digest at West Ham at the moment. I'd have loved to have gone a lot deeper into one or two of these subjects than I have done, but honestly, I could probably create a video series on the stuff at West Ham at the moment and what we need, what's going on, what has happened. But yeah, this isn't a West Ham fan channel as much as I'd at times could easily turn it into with the amount of content that West Ham lay in front of us. I mean, honestly, they're a podcaster's wet dream at the moment, West Ham, in the same manner perhaps Manchester United are. So yes, thanks everyone for watching. I hope I've delved into some of the subjects, and I hope, you know, a few of you have agreed with me. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree with my points. If you don't, keep it respectful. If you don't just come out here and abuse me. It is all just opinions, of course. And make sure you like and subscribe. If you're into retro video games, we're doing an amazing LMA Manager series at the moment for those that used to play that game on the PS2. We're having a lot of fun with that, playing a updated version of LMA 2007 as well with up-to-date squads. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Our podcast is live every single Tuesday morning. Me and the guys talk all things Premier League. Every single Tuesday morning it goes live. So yeah, check us out on all your favourite podcast apps. And yeah, thank you very much. And I'll see you again soon, hopefully for a video that's not about West Ham. But if we keep being shit, then maybe it will be. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.